Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final Towerlight football pregame show on to Rhode Island. Onward and upward. Well, I guess we can recap their game very quickly against William and Mary.
Well,
didn't go so well.
Yeah, no, it didn't. We lost 37-14 on senior day.
And Abdul Sabor had quite the game.
Yeah, he ran all over us. They had the big quote that we threw in there was that William Mary had over 100 yards in the first quarter rushing, and Rob Ambrose said that has never happened in his time as coach. I did not have time to research it, nor did I want to, but I'm going to take his word for it. And he said it never will happen again, and that's something that I don't have to research, so I can say that. But regardless, it was. I mean, that first quarter, William & Mary's offense imposed their will against Towson's defense, and, I mean, that was the game there. They were down 21-0 before they even knew it, and, I mean, it was kind of like the national championship where they didn't really even have a chance to claw back because William & Mary, for their record, showed that they were a pretty good team, like, good enough to at least draw consideration for the playoffs, which is good enough to beat us by 23. But, I mean, they dominated us for the first half, and then the second half, I mean, it didn't really matter. So I think it was more of an even fare, but I don't know how much you can take from that. So William & Mary dominated. Stat-wise, it looks like it was an even game. First downs, it was 20-18 William & Mary. They beat us in rushing yards, obviously, but we beat them in passing yards. Had the same amount of yards total.
I just yawned.
That's all right. Yeah, I mean, it was that type of game. Total offensive plays were about the same. Average gain per play was about the same. So it was a pretty even statistical game, but it obviously was not even on the scoreboard and on the field. So,
and the passing game continues to be an issue.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're losing by 21, that is even more magnified because you have to pass. So we found out quickly that we're not a team that can come back very easily, unless it might be a touchdown or something, but not 3. So maybe this Rhode Island game, maybe we'll be able to get a lead.
Maybe. Well, the good news is Rhode Island has not won any games this year. And I knew that without cheating off your notes. I did know that.
That's understandable. I mean,
because I listened to Ambrose. He was on 105.7 The Fan earlier in the week. And I guess it was on Tuesday. Yeah, it was Tuesday he was on. The Vinny and Rob show it was on.
Vinny and Rob.
Yes. And he was just talking about, he said, like, he did the typical coach speak stuff that isn't actually accurate, but he was like, well, Rhode Island's been in every game this year, and they haven't been able to turn any of them into wins, but they've hung in there. And I was just like, why can't you just admit that they're not a good team?
On that note, he did tell me that, like, literally, I think quote for quote, quote for quote there, he said that they've been in every game.
Rob Ambrose is a highly trained quote robot.
Maybe. Their closest games in the CAA were they lost by 6 to Maine and they lost by 15 to Delaware. After that, it's 20s and 30s and I don't know about 40s, but 20s and 30s is what they lost by. So they've gotten blown out a couple times. I would say that they've been in a couple games, but I don't know about every game. They're a pretty bad team, as you'll see in a little bit. A lot like Elon, but even worse, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, that quote, definitely, I wouldn't say that they were in every game.
So, since Rhode Island doesn't have any wins this year, I think the game plan is going to be pretty basic. It's just going to be that if Towson runs the ball effectively, gets Darius Victor in the game, Darius picks up 100 yards, I think it's a pretty straightforward game plan because you don't have to think outside the box to beat this Rhode Island team. You just have to kind of go straight ahead, follow your game plan, and I think it'll lead to a Towson win. And Ambrose actually said something else interesting that was on the radio when I was listening to it. He mentioned he was drawing comparisons between Darius and Terrence West, who is basically now the starter in Cleveland.
That's
now
right.
Rest in
That's
peace,
right.
Ben Tate.
Sorry, Ben.
And he drew the similarities not necessarily in the talent, because I think Terrence is obviously more talented, but Darius is also only a sophomore, so he has 2 more years to go. But he drew the comparison that when Terrence was at Towson, and when Rob said it, it kind of like made a lot of sense to me that he would have to take Terrence out of the game, or else he would want to get every single carry, and you can weigh yourself down very easily doing that. And Darius is kind of wired the same way. And I remember when Terrence, especially not so much his final year at Towson, but definitely his sophomore year at Towson, there were times when Terrence would come out of the game and other backs would be getting touches, and you'd just be like, come on, like, why isn't Terrence in there? Because he was basically a threat to score a touchdown on every carry. And Darius is kind of the same way, that you notice at some points in games that he's not in, and from Rob's explanation, it sounds like they're just trying to save him for next year, basically. But you do want to finish the year out on a strong note. You can't afford just to lose. It'd be like losing to the Raiders this year, and week 17, and the Raiders are about to go 1-16, and you lose to them, so they go 1-15 instead. Like that would just be a humiliating loss. Towson can't really have that.
Yeah, and I mean, Darius is a guy that, like you said, he wants to be in every snap, and that's good, but he's had his troubles. He hasn't had any big injuries this season, but he has been banged up to the point where he'll have to miss a play or two. And if you, in situations like this at the end of the season, when these games, I mean, for lack of a better word, they just don't matter. So it's kind of like if you've already clinched a playoff spot for, I don't know, like I guess basketball or football teams, you kind of are weary about putting your players in that, you need for either the playoffs or, say, next season for Darius. So you don't want to test it too much. But against this Rhode Island team, you would think that Darius would get some snaps. Rob is not going to want to lose this game at all. If you lose to an 0-11 team, I just couldn't imagine how, I don't want to say demoralizing, but like how big that is for a program. Going into the next season, after a loss like that, where's the momentum? Where's the motivation? We go from this national championship appearance, which obviously carries a lot of momentum. If you lose to an 0-11 team and you finish the season, I guess it would be with 4 wins. So it looks real bad for Towson if they lose this. Now, having said that, it's a really bad Rhode Island team, which makes the loss, if it happened, even worse. But in terms of the running game, they let up 239.1 rushing yards. That's a lot. And we're a rush offense that you would think would be able to at least exploit that. We only rush for 165.3 yards. That's because we just don't have the ball most of the time in these games. I think if we had the ball as much as we did last season, we probably have stats close to that. But that's just not, our offense hasn't been strong. So that's definitely one of Rhode Island's weaknesses. They let up 100 more yards than we do. So, I mean, those are just small things here. We can get into the nitty-gritty, but they're not a very good defense, and, well, they don't really have a very good offense either. And we haven't fared very well against defenses that haven't been strong. So this could be maybe a step for Towson and their young offense to see if they can explode for some points here. I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe we might get to 30. This could be a possible 30 game, which sounds really weird if you consider last season, because we'd regularly get over 30 points. So I think there's a mismatch. Well, I don't want to say mismatch, but I think Rhode Island's defense is bad enough that Towson could exploit it if it, does what it's has the potential to do. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. So those are just some little things about Rhode Island to start off. But like you said, Darius, I think, will get a heavy load of carries today or Saturday.
Yeah. And speaking of, next year and preparing for the future and things like that, something else I wanted to talk about is how Towson is going to build off the national championship appearance from last year. Something else that Rob said on 105.7 that I thought was particularly interesting was that he doesn't expect the national championship game and appearance to pay off really for another 3 years or so, because kids who are in high school now and they're seniors have basically, if you're a senior in high school now, you've already committed to whatever college you're going to, and chances are that it's the juniors and sophomores currently who would have seen that national championship or would have heard about it or whatever, and then are going to start to commit to Towson, and some of them probably won't even play as true freshmen. So it's going to be a while before that really starts to pay off. But Rob did mention that as soon as the season was over, he was going to go out and recruit in Phoenix, Arizona, and 2 locations in California. So certainly Towson is kind of extending their reach now in terms of where they're looking to recruit.
Yeah, and why not? I guess. See, when you're in a national championship game, you get that exposure. So you're gonna want to go and try to find people that know this brand now. Towson football brand is, it's probably, like I think we talked about this earlier in the week, but it's probably one of the more, I don't want to say more bigger, but one of the larger brands in the FCS now in terms of football, just because of what they did last season. How long will they stay there? That's a whole different discussion. If they go 4-8 for 3 or 4 straight seasons, they could be wiped back into, nobody land. But I don't think it's going to be like that. I think they will bank off of that national championship. I mean, to say that you'd see any change in recruiting for this season, the one that we're in now, it doesn't make any sense. Basically, what we're dealing with right now is the guys that were left over from the national championship season. In 2 years or so, then you'll start seeing the guys that came because of the national championship. So I think Rob will be more successful than he has been. I don't know how successful he will be. That'll be the test there to see if he can pitch this national championship, even though they went 4-8 this season. If he can pitch this national championship and try to get people to come here. We were talking about the seniors last week, and he talked about how kind of his pitch to them was, hey, we haven't really done anything historically, so you guys can come here and make history and pave that road. So what's the pitch going to be now? Continue the history, or, that'll be interesting to see what he does. Obviously, we probably won't know that what he tells the recruits unless I decide to be kicker next year. But, it'll be interesting. I think he will bank off of it, and I mean, if we're talking about the future of Towson football, I don't think they're going to be 4-8 or 5-7 too consistently. I think that it will be the other way, 8-4, 7-5, more consistently over the next 5 to 10 years. So I give them props for going national. I mean, that's what you have to do when you make a national championship game. You want to go as far as you can and reach out to the best people you can. So that's obviously the next step for him.
Mm-hmm. So we appreciate everyone who paid attention to us this season and who read the Tower Light and who read the Tower Light stories about the games and visited the TowerlightVideo.com while it was still up. Also pour one, a metaphorical one out for the website. But that's coming back soon, so very excited about that. So we appreciate all of your love and affection this year. It's actually weird now because I get to stop covering the football team now too, which is pretty cool. So
I'm sad.
We're moving on to basketball, though. I was at practice the other day, hanging out with Coach Gary. So,
cool guy.
Hopefully we can do some cool video stuff with basketball this year, and hopefully the basketball team will be good enough to be interesting.
They will. I think they will be decent.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So, thanks for watching this season, Towson. I know we came through like halfway through the season, but hopefully we pave the way for whoever comes after us. As we go on. Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching, Towson. Bye.